In this video, we'll be taking a look at the 2024 electoral map based on Nate Silver's new 2024 election forecast. Nate Silver was the founder and head of 538 for nearly a decade, and so today we'll be taking a look at what his new model shows us about the race to 270 electoral votes. We'll begin by filling in the solid states where either candidate has a 99% chance or more of winning. So the threshold to cross is very high, which is why there will not be as many solid states as there are on a typical map. Starting off with the safe blue states for Harris, we have just California on the West Coast, not even Hawaii, but we do have Illinois, New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, Maryland, the District of Columbia, and the 1st District of Maine. While Trump is on track to easily win in Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, North and South Dakota, all of Nebraska except the 2nd District, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Indiana. So with these safe states filled in for both candidates, Harris takes a very early and very slight lead with 129 electoral votes to Trump's 103. And before we get to the likely states, it is important to note that Nate Silver and 538 have had a very left-leaning track record. In 2020, they gave Trump just a 10% chance at winning, although in the end, he did much better than what anyone could have expected. Biden barely won the election with narrow victories in 3 key states, Georgia, Wisconsin, and Arizona. If he had lost those states, he would have lost the election entirely. But 538 not only gave him those states, but also North Carolina, Florida, and the 2nd District of Maine. They did the same thing in 2016 when they gave Hillary Clinton a 71% chance at winning. They gave her all of the upper Midwestern states along with North Carolina and Florida, states she all ended up losing. And so Donald Trump has always been underestimated by Nate Silver and 538, so it's important to keep that in mind as we continue filling in this map. And so getting to the likely states now, these are states where either candidate has between an 80 to a 99% chance at winning. So these states are going to be more competitive than the solid states, but one candidate will still maintain a clear edge. And so beginning with the likely Harris states, we have Washington and Oregon. Fundamentally, these 2 states are simply less liberal than neighboring California, and that is why the odds for Democrats here are slightly lower. We also have Hawaii. Of course, Biden's handling of the Maui fires is not going to help Kamala Harris here. That is why people think Hawaii is going to be a lot more competitive than it's been in the past, and that will probably be true as Hawaii is shifting to the right. Hillary Clinton did better in 2016 when she lost the election than Biden did in 2020 when he actually won. So Hawaii will be likely blue, and so will the states of Colorado and New Mexico, although New Mexico is barely a likely blue state on this map. These 2 states have shifted drastically to the left since the election of 2004, which is the last time that they voted for a Republican, but in the next few decades, New Mexico is going to come back to the center as Hispanic voters continue to shift away from the Democratic Party. We also have Governor Tim Walz's home state of Minnesota. He is surely giving Harris a boost here, and that is the only reason why it's a likely blue state. If Joe Biden had stayed in the race with Kamala Harris as his VP, Biden probably would have lost Minnesota, a state that Republicans haven't won since 1972. We also have in the Northeast, Connecticut and Rhode Island. These are pretty obvious. They'll go to Harris even if they're not solid. We also have the state of Maine as a whole, along with New Jersey and Delaware. These states are just fundamentally not as liberal as states like Maryland or Massachusetts, although it is surprising that New York did make it into the solid column. And the final likely blue state on this map is Virginia, 13 electoral votes, a state that elected a Republican governor just 3 years ago. This is a state where Trump actually took the lead in the polling average before Biden dropped out, and the latest polls for Harris are not looking too good here either, so I would expect Trump's odds to rise in the near future, but for right now, Virginia is a likely blue state that Trump is going to be competitive in. Before we continue, only 16% of you guys are actually subscribed, so please take the time to subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November, and follow me on Twitter for daily political updates, link in the description below. We're now going to fill in the likely states for Trump, starting off with the most obvious ones: Montana, Mississippi, South Carolina, and Alaska. These have all been solid Trump states in the past, but they just barely missed out on that 99-point threshold. And so we also have four more likely Trump states on this map, beginning in the Midwest with Iowa and Ohio, two states that used to be battlegrounds, used to be in the very center, that Obama won by lean margins just 12 years ago. But 4 years after that, in 2016, Trump flips basically the entire Midwest and had a huge impact in both Iowa and Ohio. Iowa swung to the right by 15 points, Ohio by 11. And so these two states are very much Republican now. They reelected their GOP governors in 2022 by solid 20-point margins: Kim Reynolds in Iowa and Mike DeWine in Ohio. And so Trump's impact for Republicans in the Midwest cannot be understated. If there's any region where he has completely turned the tables in favor of the GOP, it is the Rust Belt. And that is why Iowa and Ohio are going to go to Trump for a third time in a row, and Trump can probably win by a double-digit margin there this November. We also have the second and the third largest states by electoral count to give to Trump, starting off with Florida, 30 electoral votes. This used to be a hyper-competitive state. In 2012, it was the closest state. We also saw that in 2000. But in 2016, Trump surprisingly won Florida, and he did it again by an even larger margin in 2020, when everyone thought that the state was going to go to Biden. And so Florida is no longer competitive. You're not going to find it in any list of battleground states. The focus now really is just on the blue wall states, along with North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. Florida isn't really part of the conversation anymore because Republicans have just been doing so well. They completely control the state legislatures as well as the governorship. Ron DeSantis was reelected in 2022 by a 20-point margin. They also have the 2 Senate seats from Florida. So really, it is no longer a competitive state. Donald Trump is the easy favorite. We also have Texas, a state that Republicans haven't lost since 1976. The Lone Star State is traditionally conservative, but in recent years it has been shifting to the left. But it's going to take Democrats a very long time to win a state this large and to be able to move all those voters onto their side. So Texas, for the foreseeable future, is going to remain in the GOP category. Trump in 2024 is no doubt the clear favorite. And so with the solid and likely states now filled in, the race is neck and neck. Harris at 221, Trump at 218, with 99 electoral votes left to allocate. We're now going to fill in the lean states for both candidates, states where either Harris or Trump have between a 60 to an 80% chance at winning. So these states are going to be very competitive. They really could go both ways, but Nate Silver has deemed that at this moment, one candidate has a very slight advantage. And so beginning up in the Northeast with New Hampshire, Kamala Harris is the slight favorite. It's a state that went to Clinton by less than half a percentage point 8 years ago, that Joe Biden won by a much larger margin of 7% in 2020. Right now, Harris is performing somewhere in the middle of that range between Clinton and Biden. She's doing okay, but an upset can definitely happen, and so you cannot count Trump out in the Granite State. He came so close to winning it just 2 election cycles ago. And the final lean blue state, or not even state, it's only a congressional district, is the 2nd District of Nebraska, which Biden won by 7 points in 2020. Trump did win it in 2016, and these congressional districts honestly are very unpredictable, so Trump could still win, but as of right now, Harris is the slight favorite. Moving on now to the lean Trump states, we have the 2nd District of Maine, which Trump won in 2020. He's probably going to do better than what this forecast suggests. The new polling in Maine hasn't been great for Trump, but honestly, it was a very bad sample, and so in reality, he's doing much better than what the numbers currently say. We also have 3 other lean states. They're all located in the Sun Belt, and it's pretty obvious what the first one is going to be. Of course, North Carolina, 16 electoral votes are going to go Trump for a third time in a row. He won it in 2016 by nearly 4 points, by just over 1% in 2020. And North Carolina is a state the Democrats have only won once since 1976, and that was Barack Obama in 2008. North Carolina is not going to go blue for the second time in 2024 because Kamala Harris simply isn't performing at anywhere near the level that Obama was 16 years ago. If Biden couldn't even win the state 4 years ago, there's no way Harris is going to do it this time around. North Carolina will be lean Republican. We also have both Georgia and Arizona, two states that have been competitive in the last two election cycles, but especially in 2020 when Joe Biden won both of them by less than half a percentage point. Now, the fact that he won them by such narrow margins when Democrats were in a such good position nationwide really shows you that Trump is probably on track to win it this time around, because in 2020, when Biden won these states by the narrowest of margins possible, Republicans were facing a global pandemic as well as the economy not doing well all around the world, and yes, also in the United States as a result of the lockdowns. And so Trump isn't going to have to do too much to win these states back. Arizona's 11 electoral votes and Georgia's 16 were crucial in helping Joe Biden secure victory in 2020. If Joe Biden had lost these two states, which were decided by the narrowest margins, but also Wisconsin, which also was decided by less than 1%, Biden would have lost the election entirely. Trump might have only won 232 electoral votes, but in reality, he was very, very close to getting to 270. He simply got unlucky in 3 states. We're left now with just the 4 tilt states where either candidate has less than a 60% chance at winning. These are pure toss-ups. They really could go both ways, but according to Nate Silver's forecast, one candidate still has a very marginal edge over the other. And so we're going to begin in Nevada, where Donald Trump is the slight favorite. 6 electoral votes. It's a state he's never won before. He lost it by 2% in both 2020 and 2016, and no Republican has won the silver state since George W. Bush in 2004. So this is going to be a pretty big flip for Donald Trump. However, it is not going to be enough to get him over 270. He's going to have to win one of the 3 upper Rust Belt states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, while Kamala Harris has to win every single one of them. And that is going to be a difficult task for her, considering the fact that Donald Trump won all 3 of those states just 8 years ago, yes, by small margins, but he still was able to win, and today he only has to win one of them. I'm going to begin in Michigan, which is the most liberal of all of the swing states. If Harris wins any of them, it is going to be the Wolverine state first. Michigan is ever so slightly favored to go to Harris according to Nate Silver's forecast. I do believe, though, that Trump has a very good chance there still. We also have Wisconsin, 10 electoral votes, and the main reason why Wisconsin is currently expected to vote to the left of Pennsylvania is because Kamala Harris chose Tim Walz, who is the incumbent governor of Minnesota, to be her running mate, and people feel that his impact in Minnesota is going to spread across the border slightly into Wisconsin, but the 10 votes from the state will not be enough to get Harris over 270. She will also need Pennsylvania, which is probably going to be the most difficult one for her to win. Pennsylvania was Joe Biden's birth state, so he had the advantage there. But without Biden on the ticket anymore, Donald Trump is the favorite to win the Keystone State, a state he won in 2016, lost narrowly in 2020. 19 electoral votes. That will get Trump up at 287. And what's interesting is that this map directly mimics the map on Polymarket, which tracks the betting odds in every single state. You have North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona, which are lean in favor of Trump, while Nevada and Pennsylvania are tilt states with Trump as the narrow favorite. And then Wisconsin and Michigan are ever so slightly favored to go to the vice president. And so I personally do believe, though, that Wisconsin and Michigan can still go Republican, especially Wisconsin. I think it'll vote very similarly to Pennsylvania. But as of right now, according to Nate Silver's updated 2024 election forecast, Donald Trump is still the favorite with 287 electoral votes to Harris's 251. And considering his left-leaning track record, him giving Trump the victory is a pretty big deal. And it really shows you just how much better Trump is doing right now than he was in both 2016 and 2020. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November. And join my Discord server, link in the description below.